In Lees-Galloway.
Very much, Mr Speaker. Can I say at the beginning of my contribution that I acknowledge Sam Lotoyinga and acknowledge the passing of his father and say to him that he has the sympathies and condolences of members on this side of the House. I lost my mother 3 years ago. It seems incredibly unfair, doesn't it, to lose someone so close to you at such a young age, and it can be challenging to come back into the House and engage in the cut and thrust of politics. Sir, whilst I listened closely to what the member said and listened to what he had to say about his government's record over the last 5 years, I have to say that we do have a different point of view on this side of the House, because we are actually out there in the streets listening to what New Zealanders have to say and listening to what people think about this government and listening to the litany of dodgy deals that this government has engaged in. The National Party is the party of dirty deals done dirt cheap, sir. They will do a deal with anybody, especially if it is a deal that gives preference to their corporate mates, and especially if it is a deal that will get them back into government. Let's look back at the long list of dodgy deals from this government over the 5 long years it's been in government. Let's start it off with the Warner Brothers, that American corporation that came to New Zealand, created a phony crisis, and New Zealand's government turned around and changed its laws, prevented New Zealand workers from having the right to bargain collectively in the film industry because an American corporation, the Warner Brothers, came along and demanded it. And that was a deal that John Key was ready to do. The Shell Corporation, another foreign corporation, came to John Key and said, "We want you to get rid of protesting at sea." Nationals never liked protesting at sea. They didn't want to get rid of the nuclear submarines, and they took the first opportunity they could to ban protesting at sea, a New Zealand tradition, and they did it because a foreign corporation wanted to do a deal. Sir, then there was Sky City. They are prepared to increase the harm caused by gambling, to increase the social costs that New Zealand taxpayers and consumers will have to face in order to do a deal that benefits their mates, the Australian corporation at Sky City. They were ready to pay $30 million to Rio Tinto. It wasn't just a deal for their mates and that foreign corporation. That was a deal to prop up their failed asset sale program. And let's think about some of these policies that this government is promoting. Selling off our assets, assets that are profitable, assets that every single New Zealander benefits from, selling them off so that just the privileged 1% get the benefits from those profit-making assets. And there's New Zealand Power, a good solid Labour policy that this government is dead against. Why? Because it would benefit the consumers, the taxpayers, the workers of New Zealand, and it wouldn't benefit their mates, the people who have bought up those assets, bought up those electricity companies. Every deal this government does is in the interest of the few, the interest of the 1%, the interest of their mates. That's what those deals are all about. But now, sir, it's about political deals. And it's about political deals to build the coalition of the crazy. They want to do a deal with Colin Craig, the man who thinks that climate change is all down to astrology. I don't know if it was because Mercury was in Venus or what the story was, but something is changing. Something is changing our climate, and Colin Craig doesn't want to face up to the fact that it is man-made climate change. It's got nothing to do with sunspots. It's got nothing to do with the alignment of the planet, sir. But then, of course, there's John Banks. The Prime Minister's always ready to do a deal with John Banks. Doesn't matter how long he's before the courts. Doesn't matter how many donations he received that he didn't declare. Then the Prime Minister's ready to do a deal with John Banks. The Prime Minister's ready to do a deal with Peter Dunn, the man he can't even trust to be upfront about who he did or did not leak documents to. This, sir, is a coalition of the crazy, and New Zealand has a real choice. They can go for a solid Labor-led government that is working in the interests of taxpayers and consumers and hard-working New Zealanders, or they can stick with the coalition of the crazy who is working for John Key's crony capitalist mates. They're not working for New Zealand, they're working for somebody else.
Honourable Phil Heatley.
Speaker, it's